Hello and welcome to today's Learn at Lunchtime program from the State Museum of Pennsylvania. I am Beth Erickson. Our topic today is Presque Isle, Behind the Lens, and with us is Environmental Education Specialist Ray Bierbower. Hello and thank you for being part of today's program.
Thank you for having me, Beth.
So tell us about yourself, what you do at Presque Isle State Park, and what you're going to share with us today.
So I work at Presque Isle as an environmental educator. So basically, I like to describe myself as a teacher and the park is a classroom. So we get involved not only with the educational programs, but a lot of the resource management at our park as well. And today I'm going to share with you some of the things that my cohort, Brian, who's unfortunately unable to be with us today. At the beginning of COVID, we still wanted to share the park with our visitors, although we couldn't do it in person. So we ventured into this virtual realm. And as you're going to see over the next 40 or half hour, it'll be like an amateur hour, as I like to call it, as we share what we capture on our cameras, both digital cameras, camcorder, as well as our trail cameras throughout the parks.
Excellent. So let's get started with today's program to find out more.
Alrighty. Okay, so hopefully you will see my first slide here. This is one of our sunsets here at Presque Isle. We are famous for the sunsets that occur out here. We get a lot of really cool weather interaction because of Lake Erie that we go into. So just some really neat sunset photography that can occur here throughout the year. So, all right, so real quick, this is Brian and myself, Stan. This is our latest exhibit that we have at the Tom Ridge Environmental Center here at Presque Isle State Park. We were tasked with, we had an empty space, so we decided to throw up some of our photography and video work that we've been doing. And we also had a couple of our volunteers come in. So this will be up, actually I take it down next week. So unfortunately, if you're from out of town, it's probably not gonna be able to come in and see it, but it's something that we will continue to do just to share some of the stuff with our visitors. If you're not familiar, Presque Isle is a sandy sandspit that juts out into Lake Erie. We're a little over 3,000 acres, give or take, depending on what Mother Nature likes to give and leave behind after storm events and such. And most of the stuff that you're going to see today comes from this park, but we also manage and work at Erie Bluff State Park, which is about 12 miles west of us. It is the largest undeveloped tract of land along Lake Erie in Pennsylvania. Just about 500 acres, and you go to the shoreline and you're about 75 to 90 feet above Lake Erie. So it's a really cool park, totally different than Presque Isle. No infrastructure other than one pavilion on site. A lot of mountain biking activities and stuff going there. It's kind of managed like a state game lands, whereas, Presque Isle, we get about 5 million people a year that visit us. This park's nowhere near that. Most of it's just kind of recreators, hiking. Mountain biking has become very popular there as well. And this is our office, the Tom Ridge Environmental Center. It's at the top of the hill before you enter the park. Right now we're open Tuesday through Saturdays, 8 to 4. You can stop in, see the exhibits. We do have a gift shop in here. Our big green screen is going to go active again where they show environmental movies. And we do some programming in here, and this is where we developed our virtual studio as well to deliver programming to various school groups and the general public as well. All right, so now we're going to get into it. I'm going to play some videos and just kind of talk over them. There's no sound with my videos as I go, so you shouldn't hear anything as we go. So I understand last month was the ice volcanoes of Presque Isle, and I thought this would be a good way to kind of start out. This is an example of what happens overnight here at Presque Isle. This was January 12th, 2022. Brian and I came into work and it got really cold the night before, and this stuff all formed overnight. So we get these wave action, and the water itself in the lake doesn't freeze, but when those waves crash and spray up, that spray is what is freezing, and it forms these giant mountains of ice along our shoreline. They are very dangerous to walk on. That's the one thing that we really stress. They form like a volcano. They're hollow, so you can be up on top and all of a sudden drop 20 feet down into Lake Erie, and you may be out over the lake a little ways too. So that makes us a little nervous as folks that work here at the park. So we don't like people going out there. Oh, there we go. And So just a really neat formation. We really value these ice dunes that form. They protect our beaches and prevent erosion. I was here last night doing our Valentine's Day cast iron cooking dinner, and we were here till about 8 o'clock last night, and the winds were whipping about 50-mile-an-hour gusts, and Lake Erie was rocking pretty good. So we don't have the ice dunes. We barely got any ice this year. We had like about a week of some ice on the shoreline, and then it's gone. So as we get these violent spring storms now, is when we can experience some pretty significant erosion. So the years that we get a lot of ice, it's really good for the park. It protects the shoreline and saves us a lot of work in the spring season as we prepare our 7 miles of beaches for our summer visitors to enjoy. All right, we're gonna bump along here. Okay, the other thing that we are famous for is our waterfowl and birds in general. Here at Presque Isle, you can see over 300 different species of birds in a year. And okay, every time I click there, it pauses this. So you can see several different species. So this is some waterfowl that we had. I was excited. There's some northern pintails right there. We have canvasbacks, redheads, scalps, buffleheads. What else is in here? Mallards, of course. I think there are some ruddies in there, bluebills, so a variety of ducks. And this is something that can show up. Some Canada geese, of course. They're everywhere. But as we get the ice, this is something that's really nice, is the ducks get concentrated in an area, and they're forced to come to shore as well, so they're much more visible for us. In this flock here, Brian's doing some filming, and I got the digital camera sneaking up around the backside here. You'll see me in a little bit. But as these ducks are here, you know, they're just swimming around. Most of these are our diving ducks. So they're going in after the little minnows and fish and stuff, things like that they will consume. Our mallards, they're more of a dabbling duck, puddle duck, but they're the only ones that hang around. There's one of our many gulls flying by too. So there's buffleheads in there, a few mergansers in the group as well. So lots and lots of ducks that can be seen. And when you capture these groups, I'm going to speed up there. Brian's kind of zoomed out a little bit. You can kind of get a grasp. There were thousands here. And then in the background, those are all gulls primarily. So you got herring gulls, ringbill gulls. There's a big greater blackback in the far middle there now. So lots of them, and they stay here. These birds will stay here at the park pretty much year round as long as they have open water and access to food. Now, the years that we have frozen solid all the way, they will head further south then until they find open water where they can access their food supply. There's some tundra swans in the far background as well. And I'm going to bump this up a little bit more now. Whoops. Kind of give you an idea. There I am sneaking in, and the ducks are going to react to me because I heard a lot of commotion in the back. And then we're going to speed it up just a little bit more here because I spook a little bit, but seeing them all go into flight. There's a widgeon right there too, another kind of not real common duck here. It's funny, we talk to other park educators across the state, and they get excited for mergansers and things like that, and they're just like dime a dozen here for us. But seeing all these ducks take off is really cool. They circle back around and land in. And conveniently enough, this was right after the duck season, hunting season ended here in Pennsylvania. It seemed like we got the conditions finally to draw the ducks in. And we did hear the comments from some of the folks there. You know, we get through the whole season and now we get the weather for ducks. But just really cool seeing all these ducks in one location. And as you can see, they all didn't blow off the water. And then they come right back. All right, we're gonna move along. So this is a little video clip that we captured on one of our trail cameras. We acquired a piece of property next to the Tom Ridge Center that used to be a kind of a campground, had a bait shop and a hot dog stand on it. We call it Chick-fil-A's. That was the name of the hot dog stand that was there. And the amount of wildlife that is on it is unreal. And this is right next to 6th Street and the Tom Ridge Environmental Center. And Waldemere's right next door as well. And then there's condominiums on the east side of this property. But there's coyote, deer, and this is a red fox. And Brian and I, we get our trail camera cards and we sit down together usually if we can and go through them and see what's interesting. And this guy showed up and he's got something in his mouth. I'm going to assume it looks like a deer antler or some type of bone, but it does appear to be an antler that's been chewed on a little bit. And there are deer. That's what most of the tracks are there. that travel in there. And then it moved over to the far right here and was digging around a little bit, but then the next picture, it's gone, and you can see it sticking out of the snow there. So at this moment, I told Brian, I said, well, we're going to go for another quick walk and see what that is. Somebody else on the property had other ideas, and in comes a fox squirrel. This is the most common squirrel that we have here at the park. We don't have grays in northern Erie County. We have red squirrels and then the fox squirrel, which is our largest squirrel in Pennsylvania. So the squirrel sniffing it out, looks at the camera, you know, kind of like, hey, you're not going to get this. Picks it up and continues to run down the game trail. And you can see it pretty good right here as it continues down the trail and takes off with this. So these guys will gather animal bones and they will chew on them as a source of food and also to wear down their teeth as they grow through the winter months. So, okay, another little video. This is a common nighthawk, a really cool bird that we get through the area typically starting in like end of April, beginning of May. They migrate through and they fly at night, hence their name. And they fly at decent elevations, but they will eat mainly moths and nighttime flying insects. And we were fortunate enough to find one of these guys hanging out right along one of our trailheads and doesn't do anything other than sit there and kind of wobble back and forth and stuff. But we had about 9 of them in this general area that day. So something that we were really excited about. They hide very well amongst the trees. You know, with this guy moving around and stuff, it's a little easier to see, but oftentimes they will duck their head down and they look like just a bump on the log there as they kind of sleep during the day, and then they will take off again in the evening hours to continue their migration throughout the country. So another cool bird. We've been fortunate enough to have it show up here usually during our Audubon Birding Festival of the Birds around Mother's Day weekend, which is something that's great opportunity for many of our visitors to see these birds. Okay, like I say, it doesn't do anything crazy, just hanging out there. All right, this one I kind of like, good lunchtime topic here. This is a green heron and it's got a frog. And this was what Brian and I captured this at Beach 11 area. And there's a little pond there. And unfortunately, that one dead log is in the way of most of this. But this green heron is going to continue to manipulate this frog until he gets it just right. And then he's going to swallow it. It is amazing the size of food that these birds are capable of eating. All the heron family, their gullet can just expand significantly so they can consume various prey items, fish, snakes, amphibians like this. So here he goes. So he puts his head behind the tree as he stretches his neck, and then he's going to peek up and over. The one thing I noticed with this bird and any of the herons the green herons, the tails just constantly flick a little bit the whole time. And these birds, we've been seeing a greater number of them, and I think part of it is due to the resource management work we've been doing in the lagoon system here at Presque Isle as we remove the non-native cattails and phragmites and kind of opening up the waterways a little more to provide those hunting grounds for these birds. So that basically the whole heron family seems to be kind of enjoying that along with many of our other shore birds here at the park. Yeah. So again, he's done eating, so he's just going to hang out behind. We get the great white egrets, blue herons, and then we have our bitterns as well. This was one of my favorite photos I was able to capture. We do in the springtime, starting about now, because already we have baby geese in the area here. We try to manage our Canada goose population. And the way the park here has chosen to do this is to locate nests, and then we cover the eggs with corn oil. And we visit the egg or the nest once a week for 4 weeks, and on the 4th visit, the nest is then destroyed. By putting that corn oil on the eggs, it kind of seals the egg so it can't do gas exchange and it's gonna not hatch. While we're out on our airboat, which is that we get to drive here at the park, coming around the one bend, and we see these 2 birds. And this is the perfect, these are 2 cousins. So the one on the left is a greater yellow legs, and then the one on the right is the lesser yellow legs. And it was so calm and quiet out there that day that you could see their reflections in the water. They're walking on these mats of plants that are out here. So this is like a floating cattail island. If you or I were to walk on this, you would probably fall through it or it would sink down significantly. That's one thing I don't enjoy here is walking through the wetlands at the park. You can be good, 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 and then the next step, you may not know where bottom is. But a really cool bird that we get here at the park. Most of the time, they are a migratory species. So we see them in the spring and then again in the fall. I am not aware of them being documented as a bird that chooses to stay here and nest on the park itself. Another migratory one that I was super excited, and you're going to notice amateur hour with this photo or video. Some of these opportunities for us to take the videos and stuff, you know, you're kind of rolling along and all of a sudden there they are. Brian and I, we have learned that we do not leave the building without the cameras, the tripods and everything. And when we're in the vans, we have everything kind of ready to go as best we can. And we were loading up one of our boats, the airboat actually, to go out. And all of a sudden we see these guys. So this is kind of a short clip, but these are common loons. And they are doing their mating display, which is something I personally had never seen before. So I'm laying on a rocking boat, trying to film this as best I can. And it was really neat to see these. We got a couple little clips of them. They would kind of wave their wings at each other. They would dive on, one would dive under the water. The other one would stick its head under, trying to watch where it's at and, you know, trying to see where they went. I'll play that again. But just really cool. This was a little later in the year as well. So we had hopes that maybe they were going to choose to nest here. But unfortunately, they did not seem to do that. They moved on after a couple of days of hanging in the general area. And that's one thing with Presque Isle is we get all these different birds here because we are on the Atlantic Flyway and we are an important nesting and resting area. So a lot of these birds will choose to stop here, kind of build up their fat reserves before they continue their trip across Lake Erie. So that's one reason we get so many up here. And there are so many unique habitats on the peninsula because this is a dynamic location that these birds have any habitat niche that they may need. If they need shoreline, if they need a pond, if they need climax forest, we have everything from water's edge. They call it a climax forest. I grew up in north central PA. We have bigger trees there, but we have some trees here that are bigger and match the species list for what would be a climax forest. Another one of my favorite photos. This is one that most of my buddies call this the most interesting squirrel on Presque Isle. I was going around the park one day and pulled into one of our boat launches, and this is a photo of our fox squirrel. I believe it to be a female. And this was along the shoreline on the beach, and she was just leaning up against this tree, real casual like. I can't sell photos, I like to say, but this is the only photo I had a request from our photo gallery that is on display right now that somebody requested a copy of. One of our rangers thought it was really cool and enjoyed it. So this one here, as I like to say, I have sold a copy of it for it, but it's really neat capture, kind of in the moment, and just one of our critters that are really just chilling out, relaxing on the shoreline. A lot of our animals are pretty used to people, so critters like this, when it's summertime and you have 30,000 people out here, they're going to run across them. So unless they really feel threatened, they're going to kind of act pretty much normal. And using your car as a blind is something that we do a lot. So they're used to vehicles driving through the parking lots. They're not going to kind of blow out and run away. So you can capture unique opportunities such as this. Now, in relation to our fox squirrel, one of our trail cameras, the same one that had some of the stuff I shared earlier, captured this. So if you look closely, there's a fox squirrel here, and then this is what I believe is to be a Cooper's hawk. So one of our smaller hawk species here in Pennsylvania. And this fox squirrel is going to play matador with our Cooper's hawk. And he kind of chases each other around, waving that big tail. He actually charges the Cooper's hawk, which I thought was interesting. They're going to run off camera here in a moment, so I don't know how the whole story wrapped up. But most of the folks that we talked to, you know, this squirrel is pretty big for this hawk to kind of tackle. Most of the time, it is the red-tailed hawks that are going to be the ones that will challenge this particular squirrel species. I'll play that one more time. But with our trail cameras, we have 6 of them that we run on the various parks, and they capture some really unique in the moment things. And we've had a couple of these different interactions of various species of animals, some predator prey, other ones just like a deer watching a family of possums walk by in front of them. And it's just kind of unique seeing how they react to each other in the moment. Um, this one's early in the morning, and again, it's right in town, basically, this little piece of property. So we get a lot of cool activity at this particular spot. Righty. Okay, so as one of the educators, we work a lot with the wildlife. Any of the time there's an injured animal, usually one of us are called in. I have a team here of 6 of us educators, as many at one time, some seasonals. And we get involved with it. Well, conveniently this day, I guess, and away from myself, I was the only one that was available. We got a call early in the morning. I was on my way into work, and one of our maintenance staff called and said that there was a great horned owl, and that's what this is hanging here, caught in fishing line by one of our parking lots, and that they wanted me to try to come and help. So again, we have the equipment, so I had grabbed some nets, made sure I had my thick leather gloves. That's one thing I have learned over the years, and my carrier cage as well to try to get this bird. So I come down here, and I was told maintenance was going to meet me there, and one of the rangers. So the maintenance staff was here. They had tried to back one of our trucks in, but the sand was so soft that it was sinking and everything. So we ended up getting we had 2 step ladders, had to get plywood to put them on because, again, we're on sand. The whole peninsula is sand everywhere, so there's not a lot of solid ground. And extended our nets as far as we could. And the gentleman in the black coat furthest away from the picture there, he had a chainsaw pole saw. And that was extended as far as we could go as well. So we climb up. The pole saw was not running, but a chainsaw has sharp blades. And I put the net under the owl, and he was able to cut the fishing line, and the owl fell into the net. And then I handed it down to our rangers, and they kind of covered it up with a blanket then. And then we carefully carried over by my van, and I had my gloves on and trying to get the talons out of the net if anybody's ever tried to remove a bird from a net like that. And the bird was pretty calm, actually. I was surprised. It kind of acted like it knew it wasn't threatened. And we put it in a carrier, and then it went to Tamarack Wildlife Rehabilitation Center in Sagertown. We work closely with them with mostly our birds that we find up here that are injured. So this was on November 14th, and then on December 14th, Carol from Tamarack came up here, and they had a big release event. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit here. And this here, she has a little trouble getting the lid open, but this was a male great horned owl, and the fishing line was wrapped around the end of his feathers, and there was some swelling and stuff like that. So nothing was broken or anything. So on December 14th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I met him near our ranger station, and we got to witness the release of this owl. So I thought that was really cool to experience this opportunity. A lot of times I actually had to do a similar process with a bald eagle, which again, I am so thankful to have the opportunity to hold a bald eagle, but that one didn't have the happy ending like this one did. So this little guy came over, he left a little present for somebody, hung out here, and maybe this is one of the owls that we have in this general area that is nesting now. So we're in owl nesting season with our screech owls, barred owls, and great horned owls especially. And they are becoming very active, very vocal in the early evening hours, and even in the morning. Usually we have at least 2 nesting pairs that we know of here on the park. So one of our happy stories that we are excited to have occur here. All right, we just fly off. Really posed well for the photographers. We were excited about that. Okay. So this little guy, another opportunity that I had this summer is we work very hard to protect many of the endangered species here on the park. And this is one of them. This is a piping plover. This little guy, when I worked here as an intern in 2004 and 2005, we were trying to create the habitat that was here that they like. They like the shoreline, cobble, and stuff. And over the years now, we have had many successful pairs on the park. But this young man here, this is the dad, a male. And his nest was actually had to be relocated twice because it got flooded or was threatened to be flooded. And the one night that they actually had to remove the nest, and then they brought it back the next day after having it in an incubator, set it on better, higher ground. It hatched that day. 4 chicks hatched. And I had an opportunity I was invited with the Game Commission, National Fish and Wildlife, our birding groups here, to come out and have an opportunity to film this. So it's very tricky to film these little birds as they run around, I'll say. But we were able to locate 3 of the young, and they put bands on them so they could identify them. What's unique about this bird is he has no leg bands, and he's also a slightly lighter gray coloration. So they think this may be from the Atlantic coast population. So it's bringing in a little bit of genetic diversity. So here's Dad hanging out close to me, and I'm shooting into the sun, so it's not the best angle, but you're going to see the babies once they release them, and they're going to run over the dune as he gathers up his little family. The mother, she left as soon as the babies hatched. She went to Florida, they found out. So there goes the 3 babies running along the shoreline. Like I said, it's a hard shot because it's early morning, so I'm shooting into the sun. But they go over there up to the dune. Dad kind of gathers them up. They're peeping at each other the whole time. And got them. So this year we had 4 successful nests on the park. Several of these birds have been seen at other locations. When I first started here, there were 17 nesting pairs across the entire Great Lakes. I believe there was 87 of them last year. So a lot of work goes on. They just don't like they're not in the best, safest habitats as they're along the water's edge in the cobble. Lots and lots of predators. Herons will eat them. Gulls will eat the eggs. Raccoons, coyotes, fox, possums, skunks, you name it. These guys really have a challenging life. But there are folks that go out every day looking for these nests, and when they find them, they put a little cage structure over it to help protect it. It allows the parents to come and go, but it excludes many of the larger predators from getting into this area. So it's really neat. Okay, a few more here. This is one of my favorite videos that we captured. This is a pileated woodpecker, and you'll see the family poke its head out here. This was in a great location on the park, right along the main road. The Game Commission actually came up and sent their videographer up, and he shot this to get their footage for their programming and stuff. It was just in an ideal spot. This bird typically is very shy and kind of hides a lot. So it's hard to find them and see them, but they found this spot right at Beach 8, and here they are feeding them. Pretty violent feeding activity. She's going to squeeze her way into the nest here, and then she'll go in, and the babies are making a mess in there, and she will clean up those little packets and fly out with some of them, and then return later with more food for the babies. But this is our largest woodpecker that we have here in Pennsylvania. Modeled after woody woodpeckers, modeled off after these ones. And they're the ones that when you hear the real loud thumping on the trees, they create many cavities like this, and this will later be used by raccoons. Owls may use them and stuff. They may or may not return to the same cavity, depends. But she's not going to do much else here, so in a little interest of time, I'm going to bump along here. So here at the park, we're kind of known for some deer hunting as well. And this was a big buck that we got on camera last year. He got harvested by a young man later that year. And when all the deer that get harvested have to be checked in here, and we collect DNA stuff off them and stuff. And the young man was really interested in wanting to know how old this buck was. And he had a tooth pulled and sent away. And this deer was 9.5 years old. That's pretty impressive considering how big he was. When he came in, a lot of those little pieces of antler were broken off. His one eye was damaged from fighting. He was a bruiser out here. These bucks, there are several big ones. I'll show you in the next video too. We do allow archery hunting here on the park, and then we have a 2-day gun hunt, we call it. No centerfire rifles, shotgun, muzzleloader, archery only. And very few of them get removed. This was shot early August. We have 4 nice bucks in this photo, and the big guy is going to kind of prance through here in a moment. So here's the little one. I'm supposed to go up in the helicopter on Wednesday to do our annual survey of the deer here on the park. There's the big guy. He was not seen all hunting season. So we had one 8-point that was harvested. That was our biggest buck. The rest were all does or a couple younger button bucks as well. And then I did capture him without velvet in November at the same location, standing there, just a really nice, healthy buck. So at one time there were over 300 deer on the park, and then that's when we started our management plan of removing some of them. And our management plan, resource management plan calls for 12 to 17 deer on the park. Last year in February, we counted 30. I suspect we're going to count about the same amount. So our population has definitely gone up. So, and it seems to be pretty healthy as well. Okay, what broke the news last year here, for the very first time on the park, we were able to capture video or photographic evidence of the river otters here at Presque Isle State Park. This happened January. The very first video I got of them was on New Year's Eve of 22. And then we got this video, which was my best one of a family of 3. And then the last little clip I had of them was February 6th last year. And we haven't seen video, we haven't gotten pictures or video of them, but we saw the sign of these guys throughout the park. So on the left there, that is an otter latrine or a bathroom pile. And they find particular spots and they will return to those. And that's where they will kind of use it as marking territory. You can see there's a lot of fish scales in there and stuff. And these little guys, we learned, are pretty violent. They will eat almost anything they can get a hold of. So pretty neat. We haven't had the snow and ice, which makes it a lot easier to track their activity. So it's been harder to find them. But we've been kind of getting some signs, again, in February here. And on the right-hand side, we found all these fish scales. And if you notice the color on them, they're gold. So this is probably from a goldfish or a koi that we do unfortunately have in our waters here as a non-native. So we got kind of excited and put some more trail cameras out. And then last week I checked the cameras, and February 1st, we got this video of 4 of them. There's one on the far left, and then another one in a hole, and then the other 2 are going to join in here in a moment. So this is a mother and her babies, most likely. I have another location on the park where I'm seeing tracks and stuff that the male is probably hanging out at. So males don't particularly assist with raising the young. So we're excited to have these guys here on the park. And like I said, last year's when we were able to confirm and add them to our list of mammals that are known to live here at Presque Isle. So not only do our trail cameras we use them for programming, but we're also documenting new species to the park and capturing some really unique animal behavior as well with this material. So, all right, that's my last picture video. If you're interested in joining us, Brian and I do our virtual Wildlife Wednesdays, which is doing a name change to Virtual Natural Wonders because Wednesdays are getting hard to keep. We do this once a month for an hour where we share various videos, pictures, and other things that we have happening here on the park. Any state park, you can go to the DCR calendars of events and search any of the 124 state parks, but Presque Isle and Erie Bluffs are where we share the programming that we are offering here. Some require registration, some don't. Virtuals will send you an email you a link, and then you just join in as you do with this. So with that, I will thank you. I'm going to end my sharing, and if there are any questions, we can go from there.
We do have a few questions, so thank you very much for sharing those images and the information. That was great. So a question that we'll start with is, how long have you been collecting footage of wildlife in the park?
So we've had the trail cameras, a couple of them since 2012, but when the pandemic started, as an educator, we were not, well, anybody in this stuff, we were not contacting anybody and stuff. So starting probably in about June of 2020, we were fortunate enough to get some funding and buy our good digital camera, the camcorder, and we got a few more trail cameras. So we've really been putting an effort since about June of 2020 in collecting all this stuff.
So how has using this footage impacted your programming? Are you doing a lot more online or virtual programming than in person?
Yeah, so something that kind of been a positive, we see in April and May before the pandemic, we'd see about 10,000 school kids a year come out here for lessons. And we always wanted to have a pre-lesson type thing to kind of introduce things so we don't have to do a lot of that on the park because we are very limited in time, unfortunately, for some of our stuff. So the footage and things that we've been able to capture, we put into our pre-lessons, similar to what you just viewed today, to kind of go over what they may see. If we're doing a pond lesson, I have stuff on fish and macroinvertebrates and stuff. And we also can go to our live camera, kind of like you're seeing me. I have a second camcorder off to the side here, and one of my other team members can be on a camera showing a tray of macros and stuff like that. So it is a really cool opportunity that's pushed us into a way that we kind of talking about, but it forced us to really start using all this and having all these pictures now. Whenever we do any of our programmings, we try to incorporate some of it because it's very, you can talk about things, but to actually have someone captured and share our experiences as well, like the piping plover, is really neat opportunities.
So do you have a favorite picture or video that you've captured?
So my favorite picture, I think, is that squirrel, the most interesting squirrel leaning up on the log. I think that was just really cool opportunity. With the video things, Brian and I were talking about this, some of these, which ones we really like. So many have been a great opportunity, but one that really sticks out in my mind, I didn't share it tonight. Early on, it was like in January, I was just kind of wanted to get out of the office for a little bit and went for a walk on that Chick-fil-A's property right next door. And I'm looking for deer because it's deer season, end of deer season, sheds are going to be dropping. So I was kind of just hoping maybe stumble across one of those. And I look down over the bank, and all of a sudden something kind of swings its head up off of the tree branch and looks up at me and blinks, and it was a barred owl. So all I have on me is my cell phone. I back up, I call Brian, and he doesn't even get to go through his introduction. I just don't get the camera and get over here. And he just does it, grabs the camera, comes over, and we were able to film a barred owl about 15 feet away, just roosting on a tree in a ravine. Here at the park. So that was one that I really remember early on as we started to collect this. But like I said, we don't leave without the cameras. It seems like anytime we may just try to slip away and forget them, we see something that we wish we could have documented.
Well, you may have answered this question, but what animal that do you see most frequently on camera? And then what animal has been the most unique that you've seen?
Okay, so on our trail cameras, the most common thing that we capture are deer because we usually have them on trails. We do get a lot of coyotes, even though there's only like a pair and their pups on the park. And then we have a pair up here at the Chick-fil-A's property. Turkeys, it depends on the time of year. I get turkeys a lot in some of our spots. But the most unique one, and one that I'm like kind of got my name tied to, is the river otter. Like I said, that was the one that that documentation is in our collections down here, a copy of that video, and my name is attached to that as the one that collected the video evidence of the otters here on the park. So that was one that I got really excited about. And when I saw that footage from February 1st of this year, I got excited again. It's just one of those animals I have yet to see in person here at Presque Isle. I've seen them at Cook Forest and such, but not here at the park. So that's one that I was really excited to capture.
What about the underwater life? Is there any plan to capture what's going on under the water?
So you bring that up. I just got a new toy, a GoPro. I have an 8-foot long stick that it attaches to as well, and some lights that go on it. So I do plan to get into that. I have done some filming with it. We visited one of our Pennsylvania fish and boat hatcheries. We're known for steelhead here. It's a rainbow trout that lives out in Lake Erie, and they hatch them here. And Brian and I joined the gang when they were collecting the fish to strip the eggs, and then they take them to the local hatchery here a couple miles away, and they hatch them there. And we were able to go over there and actually film the fry as they were developing and stuff. And we're putting together a little series on one of these talks will be just about the steelhead and the whole process of collecting them, raising them. We're a cooperative nursery as well for the Fish and Boat Commission. So we raise steelhead here. We get them as fry though. So they're fingerlings. So they're like 3 inches long. And then we will release them when they're about 8-9 inches here. The end of March is when I release our fish. So we do plan on trying to collect some macro stuff. And we were looking around for a underwater ROV. So one of those things, got to try to talk some people into it to get a new toy.
Well, besides the steelhead, what else do you think you'll see?
So we'll definitely capture like in our pond where we would do most of this. I do plan on filming largemouth bass, bluegills, pumpkin seeds as they spawn, various species like that. And then we will run into some of the other macroinvertebrates such as dragonflies, mayflies, damselflies, things like that that are in the water. We don't have a lot of crayfish in our ponds where we do our studies, but I will take it to our stream at Elk Creek in Erie Bluffs and we'll do some filming there. I know I'll get like log perch, the darters, and things like that coming up to us as we're filming those locations. But we have a lot of fish in the area, so hopefully I can get some of those on camera.
Does the park collect weather data, in particular ice coverage and climate data?
So we do have our weather stations out here that the NOAA operates. So they collect that, and then I think it's all NOAA that tracks our ice coverage and things like that as well. The park itself, we don't particularly do that within ourselves, but we have partner groups here, NOAA, Coast Guard Station, another group that just slipped my mind. They kind of collect that data, and Army Corps of Engineers, because we collect shoreline photos for them every year at various control points. We basically stand at a spot, take a picture east, west, and north, and then once a week, and then we turn that data into them, and they use that as part of the sand nourishment project that they do.
What time of year is best to come to view wildlife, and what's the best location?
So best time to avoid is definitely from Memorial Day to Labor Day. That's when the park is the busiest. I really enjoy later fall. You get into like end of October, November. And then as we get into March, April, May, it can be really exciting. Early May and end of April, we get into the spring migration. So if you're into birds, early spring season is good for the little Tweety birds, I call them, the warblers. If you like waterfowl, definitely in the fall, early winter times would be good to see that. A lot of the mammals out here, they kind of switch to that nocturnal mode for the most part during the busy season, but like right now there are opportunities to see deer, coyotes, raccoons, foxes, all that stuff as you go around the park this time. So because we're such a busy park, most of the stuff has switched to that nocturnal theme. But I would say trying to get in the off season, that winter time through early spring would be the best time to come in and try to see stuff.
Couple questions specific to what lives there. Do you see hooded mergansers?
Yes, yeah, we do. We see the hooded, the red-breasted, and the common mergansers. And again, those are birds that some of our coworkers get super excited for. They're like robins up here to us. So we do see a lot of those.
What about snakes in the park?
So we do not, in Erie County, we do not have any native venomous snakes, which is great. On the park, we have garter snakes, ring snakes. They just actually collected a sample of a ribbon snake last year. And then the most aggressive snake we have here is the Lake Erie water snake. They are not venomous, but they don't choose to run from you, and they swim. They're in the water because they eat fish and such. So that's the only one that I've ever been bit by, because you can't move real fast in waders through muck. So.
Well, a question about visitation is, are dogs allowed to come to the area?
Yeah, so we allow dogs. They have to be on a leash, no longer than 6 feet. You can have them on the beaches. If it's a swimming beach, they must be near the tree line. So as you come to our beaches, there's trees, and then it opens up. So that's kind of easy to understand once you're there. And then they are allowed to swim in any of our unguarded beaches. So as long as you're not near a lifeguard, they are allowed in the water. The one thing I do want to stress is just make sure you educate yourself on what harmful algal blooms are. During the summer months, we can get these, and dogs are hypersensitive to it. There's a bacteria that is associated with the algae, and it can actually kill your dogs. It's a neurotoxin. So it's one thing to be very careful about when we get these real warm, sunny, calm days that occurs here. Lakeside isn't real common for it, but it can happen. But back in like the calmer lagoons and inlets, it can occur. And I know those are common spots folks want to take their dogs.
Well, I think now everybody's going to want to come visit now that they've seen what's going on.
I hope so. And if you do, stop in the Tom Ridge Center where before you get into the park, plan your visit, check in. We have volunteers and staff to let them know if there's something cool to make sure we tell our visitors to check out. And you can always give us a call if you're looking for maybe something in particular, and we can maybe help you out that way as well.
So I want to thank everyone for their questions. And Ray, what would you like everyone to remember from today's program?
One thing I'd like to say is just get out there. You don't have to take a camera, but just go out, enjoy nature, and see what you can see. If you walk through nice and quiet or just sit still, you'd be amazed what you'd be able to witness yourself.
Thank you, Ray, for being part of today's program.
Okay, thank you. Everybody have a good day.
Please join us again for more Learn at Lunchtime programs. Visit the State Museum of Pennsylvania's website at statemuseumpa.org for program information and to sign up.